15 years, blowing the doors off the competition. Podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.com.
This podcast is a member of the Blueberry Network. Blueberry. No E's. That's Blueberry, BLUBRRY.com. Blueberry.com.
This podcast is a proud member of the Lamb Podcasting Network. Find the network at largeassmovieblogs.com.
This is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Stay in your homes. Repeat, this is a Class 1 emergency. All civilian traffic is barred from streets and highways.
Do not panic. Do not panic. We've got the quirky films for your quarantine blues. Subject Cinema presents Captive Audience Theater with T.C. Kirkham and Kim Brown.
Do you think we'll have enough time to discuss this film?
Oh, I don't think there is enough time to discuss this film. I think it's a question of language because there's only so many ways you can say what the beep.
Welcome to Subject Cinema presents Captive Audience Theater. I'm T.C. Kirkham.
Hi, I'm Kim Brown.
These little shows in between all of our normal stuff because Subject Cinema is currently on hiatus due to the COVID-19 outbreak because we can't see any new films unless we watch them on TV, and we're kind of adverse to doing that. So, we're bringing you our best bad movies, our worst bad movies, and our in-between bad movies in this bad time for you to watch while you're stuck at home, depending on your situation. We're opening again on Monday. Baker has officially announced that. So, we'll see. I don't think we're going to be going back to work because they were saying office workers are the last ones that are going to get out again.
We're lucky enough that we're working
at home right now.
So. But we figured since you have all of these choices on Netflix, you can binge all these, incredible TV shows and all kinds of other things.
If you got a Roku or, one of those, you got even more to choose from.
But eventually you get tired of quality and now you wind up here. Because
hey, no. We're a quality show.
We're a quality show.
The movies we are looking at are not quality.
But we figure if we have to see them, what do we always say here at Captive Audience Theater? If we have to suffer, you have to suffer. And my frog, did that come true with this one?
Oh, you're way too hard on this movie.
Says you.
I am. I've always kind of liked it. It's quirky and weird. I'm sorry, but I do think it definitely falls into the...
It is quirky and weird. So is drinking absinthe, but, I wouldn't recommend that either.
1980s... extremely B movie budgeted film. The day time ended.
Yeah.
The biggest question about this film is what the hell was Jim Davis thinking?
That's one of the big questions.
This movie obviously must have shot sometime before Dallas took off.
He must have been praying they were going to get picked up.
Yeah, because I know Dallas had already been on. It started in early 78.
But it was a miniseries.
It was a miniseries, but it came back in the fall of 78.
Right.
There's no excuse for this. This came out in 1980, which was shot in 79.
Well, Jim Davis, known
has a history
to...
of doing crap movies.
Yeah. Known to all of us kids of the 70s as Ewing patriarch Jock Ewing. Unfortunately, the thing is, when you're a working actor, you have to take whatever comes along, and as long as the check clears, who cares? But that doesn't always mean that you wind up doing, Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And poor Jim wound up, besides doing this film, he was also in Monster from Green Hell.
Years before.
Which is awful.
Yeah.
And he was in the Al Adamson opus, Dracula versus Frankenstein, which one of these days we're going to get around to watching.
We should get around to doing Monster from Green Hell on here, too, because that movie's terrible also.
Oh, man.
Give us the 90-second rundown of this film.
Okay, first of all, we open up on a field of stars. So I sit there and start going, space, the final frontier. And because at first nothing's happening. Then we hear a voice, faint, but we realize it's Jim Davis because
it's twisted through all kinds of different sound
We had
effects.
to screw with the volume on this thing so many times because it was up, it was down, it was sideways, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, oh my gosh.
And the commercials blew us out because we watched it on Tubi.
Tubi, yeah.
So,
the character that we're hearing from right now is Jim Davis's character Grant, who's talking about the nature of time and how we think that time is, this linear thing, but time is really, the past and the present and the future are all happening at the same time and all this other wibbly wobbly timey-wimey stuff. And it's just, I'm like, okay, we're not 5 minutes into this movie and my nose is bleeding. This is really going to hurt. So, the film actually begins with a family moving to the Sonoran Desert, which is in California and could double for Tatooine. The grandparents have apparently built a house that the
ugly house.
It's not the best looking house in the world now. I mean, it's well put together. It's just ugly. I mean, I know that a lot of people who remember the 70s remember it as the me generation. Some of us who actually lived through it remember it as the my eyes generation. Because if you see the things that people wore, drove, and lived in,
if you've heard us talk about Lords of Dogtown, you've heard her endlessly talk about the 70s.
Seriously, if you see the way things were in the 70s, you're amazed we made it to the 80s. But this house has been built, and the children, the grown, children and their daughter are going to move into this house so they can be closer to the grandparents and their younger son who still lives with them, and who looks like he's about maybe 15, 16.
16,
yeah.
Somewhere in there, probably.
The older folks are Grant and Anna, and their son Stephen, and the family that's moving in are Richard, his wife Beth, and their little annoying child Jenny.
Richard is, we assume. Now, all the reference materials we found on this movie have them all with the same last name.
Yeah.
So, what's her name? The daughter's name? So we're assuming that Beth Williams married a Williams?
Yeah, we guess.
Because her husband Richard's last name is also Williams?
Yeah, either that or the people that wrote this up on Wikipedia just put names in just for the names for the sake of putting them in.
There's no last names listed on the IMDb. So.
Now, while the family's getting used to living where they're living now, apparently, as we find out through that old reliable thing of all movies, the radio, which is playing exactly at the same time that we need to have plot points fed to us, that apparently...
Well, that's because it's this movie's example of a plot device.
Hello. Apparently, billions and billions of years ago, there was a triple supernova, and out in space... somewhere, that whole final frontier thing. And because it takes, forever and ever and ever and ever and ever for things out in space to be felt or witnessed or heard here on Earth, that's all the scientists and things, they're saying that, there could be electrical disturbances and blah, blah, blah. But don't panic, don't worry. Where have we heard that lately? But, that's what it's from. It's from this triple supernova that happened like a kajillion years ago, but everything's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Stop right there. I don't know much about science class. I will be the first to admit I slept through a lot of school.
You did not.
But,
honestly.
Well, unless it had to do with duckies or bunnies or frogs or things like
that.
I
didn't say you were interested. I just said you didn't really sleep through school.
I mean, I excelled at dissecting stuff, but, maybe I should have done it in class.
Anyway.
Moving forward. I'm sorry. No. I could be wrong about this, but I would think that a triple supernova at some point whenever would have caused a shite ton of problems. Like, torn a hole in space or whatever?
I doubt it.
Well, that's what this movie's about.
Well, not really, but sort of.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
So the family is all like moving in. The father's not there. He had to go to somewhere. He had to go somewhere in town or away from where they're living for business.
I kind of swore they said he was going to New York, but he couldn't have because he was pretty close to home.
Nope.
Yeah.
But strange things are happening. Strange things are about. But none of them are being noticed by the adults because this is
an entirely different time traveling movie. Stop stealing Bill and Ted's stick.
I didn't do the whole thing, and there's not a Circle K within miles of this.
I know.
So
there is, however, a rundown gas station, as we see later in the film.
Yes, which is not terribly pivotal, but anyway. Since this is a science fiction film in the 70s, we're falling back on that old trope of adults are useless. Because strange things, as I mentioned, start occurring, and they all seem to be focused with little Jenny, because she's the only one.
I have a complaint about that.
What?
It doesn't imply adults are useless.
They don't listen.
They don't listen. That's not the same thing.
All right. They don't listen. But they don't listen.
Would you listen to her?
Huh?
Would you listen to her?
How could you not listen to her? Her voice was so shrill it would shatter glass.
Anyway.
I'm sorry. That's unkind. I'm sorry. But there are strange, odd occurrences happening. One of them being this pyramid. And when I say pyramid, I don't mean big, large, enormous.
No, it's a small one, about the size of an outhouse.
Yeah. Green pyramid that sort of comes and goes that only Jenny sees. Well, Jenny and the audience, we know it exists. But it keeps disappearing, and Jenny is perfectly fine with this. She tries to tell it, what happens to her parents and grandparents, but nobody listens because apparently nobody takes cues from Japanese movies where it seems they always listen to the short pants kids when the monsters show up. But anyway, things, as I mentioned, are going on and things are getting strange. And at night, when the family retires for the evening, Jenny has a visitor come to her room. Calm down, it's not like something terrible. It's a little alien. And when I say little, I mean little. About the size, slightly larger than an action figure.
And he looks like the aliens from Close Encounters.
It's definitely, yep. Well, not exactly close.
It's a copy of it.
It's close. And he doesn't, he, they, she, we don't know.
It doesn't matter.
They don't speak, at least not in ways we understand. They do make a noise that almost sounds like some kind of weird musical kind of sound. Mm-hmm. And it's obviously not hostile. It doesn't attack her, as opposed to the evil video camera that comes in the room later on. I don't know what else to call
I don't
this
either.
thing.
That's what it looks like.
I'm
a floating
sorry.
video camera with windshield wipers on.
Yeah, it's a floating video camera kind of thing, and that actually
old style video camera, like the early mid between the big cameras and the small ones.
Like the 70-pound suckers that were supposed to be the home cameras. This naturally scares Jenny. It would frighten me too, because it looks like it films Darth Vader's home videos. And she tries to hide, and she hides in her closet while this thing tries to burn a hole in through the door to get to her. And the thing is, this little creature shows up in the grandparents' room as well. The grandmother sees it and promptly freaks out. I don't entirely blame her.
No.
And the thing is, she sees it, they believe her when she says she saw it. Yeah, of course. But the grandfather is of the opinion, okay, we need to leave. I'm like, oh my gosh, we have a movie where actually people are thinking rationally. Oh my gosh, I don't believe it. This won't last long.
Well, of course he's thinking rationally. He's Jock effing Ewing. Come on.
I'm going, this won't last long. So they head outside and try to start the car. Well, they get everybody together and they plan to go out and start the car. Now, the thing is, the car starts.
Isn't that the car?
Yeah. See, that's the thing about the car starting. Nobody's outside to start the car. And this is long before they invented those little dealy boppers that are on your key fob that used to go boop boop. And
now, before we go any further, we should mention we've left out a couple of things.
Yeah.
The house has been hit 2 or 3 times by these swirling lights.
Yeah.
They look like a dust devil, but it's big enough for the house, and these lights are spinning all over the place. When they got into the house the first time, the front room was messed up.
Yeah.
Later on, both Grandma and Grandpa, before they went to bed, saw a pair of UFOs flying around.
Yeah.
A whole bunch of them, actually.
Yeah.
So they've both convinced themselves.
They've convinced themselves that they didn't really see what they thought they saw,
Right.
even though those things were close enough that they probably would have, like, felt them move their hair.
It was like a drone. Yeah, okay. So anyway.
I'm like, what?
Now we're out to the car.
All right.
thing.
So now the car is started on its own, and it starts acting all weird. The lights are going off, and the windshield wipers are going, and all this stuff like that, and nobody's in the car. The little girl tells the car to stop scaring her mom, and the car stops doing everything.
Now, Jenny, when trying to alert her grandfather to this pyramid thing.
Yeah, whatever it is.
And took him back to show him, and it wasn't there, found a little pyramid-shaped rock or something on the ground and has had it in her pocket the entire movie.
Yeah.
So she's communicating with something, they just don't know it.
Yeah. So...
You gotta get that in there so people don't get too confused.
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's almost as confusing as an opening for soap. Anyway. The show, not the stuff you wash with.
They're trying to get... Once the whole thing happens with the car, the grandfather sees something moving out in the darkness, because this is in the middle of the desert. There's no...
Middle of the desert in the middle of the night.
Yeah. There's no neighbors. There's no street
They
lights.
actually mentioned it's like 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah. There's no neighbors. There's no street lights. There's nothing. But there's enough that he can see something moving in the scrub out beyond the house. And, if anybody thinks that that's something friendly, you're very optimistic. Bless your heart, but it's not. The house is besieged by these creatures. We never find out what they are. They're large and ugly, and they seem to be kind of vacillating between trying to get in the house and kill the family and killing each other.
Yeah. Well, they didn't even know the family was there until they accidentally, attracted their attention.
Yeah.
So.
But they were still trying to kill each other even when they were trying to kill the family.
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
like, y'all don't know what you're doing, do you?
It's like a kaiju fight.
Yeah. Only not as good. And there's nobody to root for. So after a few moments of this happening, the UFO shows up again and, beams these beasts away somewhere. Now, during all this, part of the family has been hiding in the barn, the grandfather and the son, and the other members of the family have been hiding outside the house?
Yeah, well, let's set that up. They ended up in the barn because Steve, the teenage boy, went downstairs to get his, what would she be, a cousin?
Niece?
Niece.
Yeah, his niece.
Niece's doll, and found himself face to face with one of the killer video cameras.
Yep.
He backed out the front door, they saw him, and Dad went out to help him.
Okay.
So we need to get that in there.
Now,
because we're leaving out a bunch of stuff.
Well, we do want them to see this film, because if we had to go through it, they should too.
Yeah. Well, I like this film. I'm sorry.
Well, yes, and you can explain yourself in a minute. This, for lack of a better word, I don't know what else to call this. A time vortex or a time tidal wave, I don't know how you call it, occurs, and the family gets separated. The daughter and the granddaughter wind up separated
disappearing.
Disappearing.
Turns out that
gone.
all these swirly lights are creating a time vortex.
Yeah. So they hide.
All of this is connected to the giant supernova.
Yeah. So they hide, and they're trying to, cope with what's happened, and they don't know where or when their other family members have disappeared to, until the sun comes up, and they wind up leaving the barn. The grandparents and the grandparents and their child, they leave the barn with the horses, and they start riding. And right after they leave the barn, did they notice the moon, or did we notice it first?
We noticed the moon first. The gigantic moon and the double sun.
Yeah, the gigantic moon, and obviously, the two suns. And I'm like, well, Toto, we're not in Kansas anymore. So they're riding along, and I should just call him. I'm just going to call him by his name. Grant actually doesn't speculate. He just comes flat out and says it, that they've somehow been launched into the future. Mm-hmm. I'm like, the future of what? Mm-hmm. Because if you think you're still...
We already figured out they were in a space-time rip or warp of some sort when they came into the barn, and the son said he'd only been gone for like 2 seconds, and he and his wife came in the barn after he rescued her from one of the monsters.
Yeah, and
he'd been gone for over an hour.
Yeah.
So they figured out something was up.
Yeah, but my point is, you're saying the Grant's saying there are 1,000, they could be hundreds of thousands of years in the future. I'm like, okay, that's great, but if you think you're still, thousands of years in the future and you're on Earth, buddy, I have news for you.
No.
Because I don't think you're on Earth either, because that's not our moon and those aren't our suns.
Yep, and after they travel a little while, suddenly their daughter reappears with no explanation.
Yeah, their daughter...
everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
You'll see, everything's going to be fine. And then the granddaughter and the son-in-law, who came home and was trying to get home and...
Because the daughter, Beth, who was missing and sucked up into this time whirlpool, whatever, she's been in contact with this presence. And it's far beyond what they are. It's evolved far beyond what humans are, but she can sense a warmth inside of it. Mm-hmm. That's a volcano. No,
well, obviously the granddaughter had the same feeling from the little pyramid thing.
But they're safe, and they're going to learn all of the secrets of where they are or something. She keeps repeating everything's fine with this really freaking weird Stepford smile look on her face. And I'm like, no, it's not fine. That's not your daughter. That's not your daughter. That's not your daughter.
Yeah, it is.
And he's like, no, it is. I'm like, it is? And he's like, yeah.
I've
I'm
seen
like,
this
oh.
before we
So they're still traveling forward, and they see these lights again, these kind of... Basically, they look like, this is an odd way to put it, but they look like they're about the size of a hockey puck, mm-hmm. but they
look
glowing.
like that because they're in the distance.
They're glowing. They're like,
they're probably
fast
huge,
moving.
But we can't see that because
well, no, not the little
up.
ones. Not the little.
Well, they're high up.
Well,
yeah.
So they see all these lights, and the lights are heading toward this futuristic-looking city that's got all these domes on it and these big high spires, and it looks like a very impressive matte painting from the original Star Trek. And they're going...
I think they spent more money on that than they did on anything else in the film.
No kidding. And they decide they're going to head there. And as they're heading there, Grant says that this was the purpose of all of this, that this was where they were intended to be. And... they head toward the city, and the movie ends.
Okay. Jim Davis as Grant, Dorothy Malone as his wife, Anna. Good Lord, why? Christopher Mitchum as Richard, the son-in-law. Marcy Lafferty as married daughter, Beth. Scott Colden as teenager Steve. Natasha Ryan as little girl Jenny. And Roberto Contreras as that all-important role, that grizzled gas station attendant.
Yeah.
Oh, God. Okay, see, I actually like this movie.
Why?
Because it's fun. It's a goofy movie. It doesn't make any sense. But I don't see any problem with the performances. You had a problem with some of the acting, particularly that of Natasha Ryan, who wasn't that good. She was only like 7 or 8.
I'm cutting her some slack. She was a little girl playing a little girl role in the 70s.
Jim Davis was doing the best he could with the material.
No, I know.
Dorothy Malone, she's a classic star from the 40s and 50s.
No, everybody was giving it the old college try.
You asked me why. Let me finish.
All right, okay. All right.
Christopher Mitchum has a pedigree. His father was Robert Mitchum.
Mm-hmm.
Marcy Lafferty was married at the time to one of the biggest overactors of all time, our friend Mr. William Shatner.
I didn't say that, Bill.
I love you, Bill. And Scott Colden had several, roles over his many careers. He's now a sound designer and a Foley artist, but he at the time was best known as playing the little brother in the Croft series, Sigmund and the Sea Monsters. So everything, all these people had good acting. The script is all over the road. I mean, I'm the first to admit the script makes no sense. But the stop motion animation that they used for the monsters was not bad for
No,
a movie with this low of a budget.
No.
Although the flying video camera was a bit ridiculous. And the domes thing at the end and the houses themselves were designed pretty well, although I didn't particularly like the design of the houses.
No, well, the architecture of the house in the desert and the barn, actually, it's just so
I first
70s.
saw this out of the blue when it was on WOR years and years ago on their afternoon movie. I checked it out because I hadn't seen Scott in a while since Sigmund ended, and I wanted to see what he was doing. And I love Jim Davis. And I kind of liked it. I mean, it's goofy. Yes, the story makes no sense. The effects are not the best in the world. But it's still fun.
Okay.
You really hated this movie.
Okay. Now that I've had it... No, wait. Hold up. Now that I've had a day to ruminate over it, because we saw this yesterday.
Big words. Ruminate.
Look, I did go to college.
I know.
I'm going to use those words if I have to. I paid for... I should use them. I paid for them. But anyway, I have had a day to think about it. And is this a horrible film? No. Does this film make me want to run screaming into the shower and scrub myself till I'm bleeding? No, it's not Manos. Do I feel absolutely outraged by this film? No, it's not the future. But
the Miranda July movie.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And do I just feel disgusted with the entire human race? No, it's not a Coleman Francis movie. So anyway, moving forward. It's dumb. Yeah. It's dumb, but it's harmless. Now, there are some issues with this film. Okay? Now, one issue that I actually I don't have is the one thing that I think a lot of people would take away from this film and go, well, wait a minute. Usually in these kind of movies, the female characters are usually spending most of the movie screaming their heads off, and the guys are doing a lot of shouting and yelling and stuff. That doesn't happen in this film. They're really casual.
Well, it does on the older daughter's part. She's kind of freaking out most of the movie.
Well, yeah,
but the little girl and the mom, the older mom, they're fine.
Yeah. Well, when...
Although she naturally screams when she sees that monster, which is a natural reaction.
Well, yeah, that's anybody's going to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, I'm not in this situation. I really shouldn't comment. But when your child is missing, I would tend to think that you would be a little bit freaked out.
Well, she was freaking out before that happened. So, I mean, she's just that way.
Anyway. But, I mean, you didn't have a lot of people going, what is happening? And that kind of thing that you get in these kind of films. And that was nice. That was a nice respite from that sort of a deal. I guess my biggest issues with this film is just on my own me level. And we all know that my own level can be light years away from everybody else's. Mm-hmm. One of the things that Beth says when she's reunited with her family is that these people, beings, whatever, that she's been talking with, feeling with, I don't know.
Telepathing with.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Communicating.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That they've evolved beyond physical forms. Mm-hmm. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I know.
Well, that all
I know where she's going with this, and she's absolutely right.
Well, that all sounds pleasant and nifty, but if they've evolved beyond physical forms, why the F do they need a city?
Well, who's to say they're the ones that live in the city all the time? They may just be the next level of people.
Well, I suppose.
Yeah.
That irritated me. I'm like, they shouldn't need a city. Impressive though that painting was, they still shouldn't need a city if they don't have physical forms.
Beings, but we know there's corporeal beings because we've seen them. The little guy, the little extraterrestrial guy, and the flying video camera from hell.
See, and that's
I mean, those are actual, beings.
Physical things.
Yeah.
But now, and that's another thing that never gets explained. Who are all those things?
Yeah.
Are those pets of the evolved beings?
No,
are
they're
they
from
soldiers?
All different places, I think.
Yeah, that's what that these people
it's a space-time warp.
Yeah, that these people these whatever they are just arbitrarily plucking beings from different times and throwing them together and seeing what'll happen.
Interestingly enough, the movie was originally supposed to be titled Earth's Final Fury, which actually, to me, sounds like a volcano movie.
That sounds
there
like
has
a disaster.
Been a volcano movie.
Yeah, that sounds like
name.
A disaster movie.
Then it was called The Vortex.
That would have made more sense.
And now it's called The Day Time Ended. I don't know. I think The Day Time Ended is pretty good because it is all about time.
But time didn't end. Time ending means everything.
The understanding of time ended.
Well, the human understanding of time. Yeah. And that's the other thing. I want to bring that up real quick.
Okay.
I brought this up to you. That now you have the whole happy ending of this film where these incredibly enlightened beings have picked up these humans and are going to treat them, well and show them everything and blah, 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 and all that. And doesn't that sound fantastic? Do you know what that makes you as a human being to these evolved creatures and all that? You're a hamster.
Yeah.
You're a pet.
I think they're just trying to they probably just sent them home.
You're a pet, you're a gerbil, you're a sea monkey, you're definitely
we'll
not.
Talk about sea monkeys another time.
You're definitely not a dog. You're not something as evolved as a dog. You're something small and cute that they want to play with.
Alrighty, so where do you categorize this one?
Categorizing this film, I'm going to put this, we're going to do a hybrid. This is a hybrid of wasted potential, because if you actually took the idea of a family being lifted out of time and tossed in with other beings lifted out of time and actually had it, explained at the end of your movie, that would have been good.
Right.
Moving that along, merging that also with jumping on the bandwagon, because that's definitely going on here.
It is?
When you've got, you mentioned it yourself, when you have the one aliens that we see are boo, 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 boo. The cute little aliens as opposed to like the acid spewing xenomorph kind of thing. That's definitely that bandwagon's getting jumped on, but that's the category that this film belongs in.
The film did get nominated for a Saturn Award. Marcy Lafferty was nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And it is available for you to check out in two forms. You can check the original film out on Tubi, or Tubby. It looks like it's pronounced Tubby, but it's pronounced Tubi.
I'm pretty sure it's
that
Tubi.
it is played with commercials, but it's a really good print. It's better than I've seen.
Yeah, the print was good.
The other one is part of the season 12 episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, starring Jonah Ray on Netflix.
Also known as The Gauntlet.
Part as The Gauntlet, yeah. Which we decided not to watch because she had never seen it before. So we haven't seen it. We haven't watched The Gauntlet at all.
Yeah, we need to do that.
It's over a year, almost 2 years old now. So we're going to have more of these as we continue to go on. We'll continue to bring these to you as the country slowly comes back to normal.
Hopefully.
So you'll probably see these through the end of May and into June. And even though we're probably going to be getting back to normal as the next few weeks go on. Don't forget, you can check us out on Twitter. I'm at eCinema1. She is at Platinum Rose L. You can also check out all of our other shows still around, previous episodes and current episodes, and check out our websites, eCinema1, eCinema Boston, so on and so forth. All of the information is at PNRNetworks.com, or you can go to eCinema1, eCinema Boston, ringaroundtherosie.net, and all of our other shows, including Cape Babel with Eric and Valerie Lyon, and a few other things, and find out all about them by checking the shows out on the sidebar or in the show notes down below.
Yep.
For Captive Audience Theater, from Subject Cinema, I'm T.C. Kirk.
I'm Kim Brown.
May your popcorn always be buttered.
And may your roses always be in bloom.
It's a space-time warp, damn it!
Yeah, it is.
You've been listening to Subject Cinema presents Captive Audience Theater with Kim Brown and T.C. Kirkham. Produced by PNR Networks, Boston, Massachusetts.
years, blowing the doors off the competition, podcasting to planet Earth.
PNRNetworks.